If you've seen all the buzz about what happened with Brett Cooper and her show and how her best friend has stepped in place of her. And I'm not going to get into all of it because, well, there's so many different sides of the story, and what is the actual truth that we don't know. What I do want to talk about is how she pretty much is doomed to fail, at least not be the equivalent to what Brett was. And I'm going to get into the reason why. So just like bear with me here. So all of the work that I do is around our soul's own unique blueprint, our soul's own unique gifts, what living in alignment means for us, etc., etc. And here's the thing, is we cannot try to be like someone else, even following our mentor. And I know this firsthand because at points in time in my kind of stepping into my purpose, I would quite often fall into the advice of even my own teachers and guides and mentors and coaches and everything like that. And every time I did that, I actually started to see a decline in my business, in my growth, in everything. I became completely misaligned. So simply put, we are meant to just be ourselves. We are meant to just live as ourselves. That's it. And when we try to emulate, and whether or not she actually did or didn't do some of the things that have been said, is besides the point. Simply put, she basically just stepped into, and I mean, okay, she was the producer of this. So of course she had a huge hand in the production of creating this show. So of course she's going to know, but the biggest failure that they did for her was having her essentially just step into and take place for Brett. And as I said, that will never be able to happen because she is not Brett. And that show was built around Brett and who Brett is and Brett's personality. Brett's blueprint is all over that show. So Reagan cannot be Brett no matter what. And her blueprint is completely different from Brett. Her gifts, her soul's purpose, the true essence of who she is completely different than Brett. So of course, putting her into that is setting her up for failure. And it's sad. They should have rebranded. They should have started a whole new show. They should have done a whole new set. They should have just done all of that stuff. And she should have just come on and been herself. That would have been better than taking her and plopping her into Brett's seat and having her basically try to be like Brett. So this is a different topic for me, not something that I would normally discuss. Definitely not something that I would share online. This might ruffle some feathers. But at the end of the day, what they've done is sad to both, to everybody, to all involved, but essentially to Reagan because they set her up for failure. And if she's going to have any hope of succeeding, as I said, it should have just been a complete rebrand, a whole new set, just allowing her to be her instead of hopping into Brett's seat and taking over, and allowing her to just be her. Because when we try to emulate somebody else and we try to do it their way, we're never going to be successful, ever. So I always say to people, are you as successful as you want in your life, in your business, in your relationships, in whatever? No. There's likely a misalignment, and that's where our soul's divine blueprint knowing that information is so key. And I always say it's like that gives you the power to be unapologetically you. And I think that that's one of the reasons why Brett was so successful, is because she just was her. She just showed up every time as her. And if Reagan has any hope of being successful, even the slightest bit successful as Brett, she has to show up as her. And hopefully they're seeing that, right? With the mass unsubscribes and the vastly different number of views on the channel. And hopefully she and or they at Daily Wire will change and allow the show to become a new show and to become Reagan's show. I know that Brett, with whatever she does, is going to be insanely successful, not just because she's built such a incredible following and loyal support group and everything like that, but because she's going to show up in her new show as her, and she's just going to be Brett. And that right there guarantees us success. Most of us don't just show up as ourselves because, well, I could make a whole other video on this, and maybe I will make a whole other video on this, but simply put, most of us don't show up as ourselves because, one, we don't know who that is. I think why so many of us, when we get middle age into our 40s, we have a little bit of a midlife crisis because we think to ourselves, who am I? I have been living my life for everybody else but myself. So there's that aspect. And then the other is because sometimes it can be really scary to just be ourselves and to just show up online as ourselves. And because, well, what might people think? The judgment, the possible ridicule, opening it up to comments from people, their opinions, especially if you're maybe sharing stuff that might be slightly controversial, right? So that's why so many of us don't want to just be us, because that's scary, right? When you are living the truth of who you are and you put that out there to the world, you are really being vulnerable, and that can be hard. I just wanted to give my 2 cents because I work with people every day around living in alignment with who they are and their blueprint, and celebrating their uniqueness and bringing that into every aspect of their life, whether that's in their job or in their business, in their relationships. And it really is so incredibly life-changing. So I could see the perspective, and I could see how, sadly, no matter what happened, she wasn't going to succeed the way that they, I think, had hoped that she would have.